Hello everyone, welcome to this week's video from the Purple Penny. My name's Mark. I own and run the Purple Penny along with my wife Catherine. We've been here for 6.5 years. We buy and sell coins, banknotes and collectibles. Sell them in our shop and through our website thepurplepenny.com. We're also distributors for the Royal Australian Mint. We get access to some of the new releases, make them available to our regulars here in the shop and sometimes through our website if we get enough inventory. Of course, there was a release last week on Thursday that went off with, I'll say, a whimper. Wasn't a very popular issue. We had the 2026 lunar coin, so it's the lunar year of the, I've forgotten already, lunar year of the something. We had the tetradecagon 50-cent piece, the two $1 coin set, no silver coin as yet, and then we also had the 2025 festive florals 50-cent piece, which has been a thing for the last few years, and we had the copper nickel coloured 50-cent piece in the 5 different coloured cards, and the silver proof 50-cent piece, which was a little bit harder to get hold of. Thank you, Junior. Yes, Year of the Horse. Thank you for reminding me of that. Now, while we're talking about that, we may as well just get into the news, because there was a Christmas coin in the news here in Adelaide this week. Sorry. With the police popping up this picture on their Facebook page, and it appeared on the broadcast news last night on TV here in Adelaide. Police have conducted a search at a property in Seaton, which is a western suburb of Adelaide, and recovered that coin that you can see there. Of course, it's a 2022 Christmas Beetle silver proof coin, along with the ribbon to allow you to use it as a Christmas decoration, and SA Police want to return it to its rightful owner. So if you are here in Adelaide and you're missing one of those, then please contact the police and perhaps they'll be able to return that to you. It's missing the outer packaging, of course, which is always a shame. Now, if you have been watching for a little while, you would know, of course, that the Adelaide Coin and Banknote Expo is coming up soon. I think we're just under 4 weeks away now, so it's on the long weekend at the beginning of October the 4th and 5th, on the Saturday and Sunday. It's open from 10 till 5 on Saturday and 10 till 4 on Sunday. The Royal Australian Mint will not be attending, and as I've said to a few people, that's not because the Numismatic Society has upset them or anything. The Royal Australian Mint will not be attending any shows in Australia at all this year, and unfortunately, because of price rises from the South Australian Government department that owns the Torrens Parade grounds where the show is going to be, they're going to be charging an entry fee this year of $5. If you're a pensioner or under 18, it'll be $1, and as normal, there'll be a $10 fee for parking in the car park. Just to give you a bit of an idea, the department that's in charge of that particular venue wanted to charge the society $1,000 to use the car park on Friday to allow dealers to set up, so you get an idea of how much it actually costs to hire that venue and use the car park. To make the car park available costs several $1,000s for Saturday and Sunday. It's a very expensive exercise. The table fees, for example, have nearly tripled in the last 5 years, so it's not a cheap exercise even for us to go. But if you are coming from interstate as a dealer, you're looking at table fees, airfares, paying people accommodation and all that sort of stuff. It is an expensive business going to a coin show. And before we get on to the next item, we'll just say a few hellos to people. Hello Sam, hello Ted, hello Peter, hello Junior, hello Gwen, hello Nelson, hello Peter, thank you for joining in today. I haven't seen you for a few weeks. Hello Lisa. Yes, Lisa, we did see the stolen coin. I've already shared that today. Hello Daryl. Hello Catherine, who's outside there keeping the wheels of commerce turning. Hello Petra, Ian and Carolyn. And yes, Peter, if you could book for the correct weekend this time, that would be good. Peter came on the wrong weekend a couple of years ago, so Now, just what's on the news next. We've got, sorry, the microphone is in the way there. We've got a story that came up in the Numismatic News newsletter about a American university student. He goes to the University of Virginia, and when he was 16, he started an online coin business. And now at the age of 21, his coin business in the last financial year generated $960,000 US in revenue. And he generates all of his revenue via eBay and coin shows. And he takes this so seriously that he changed his university from one in Palo Alto in San Francisco to Virginia on the east coast of America. And why did he do that? He did that to bring himself closer to what he called old money. So older families who were passing down coins to younger generations. And that wasn't going on in California. There wasn't that old money in California. And I thought it was just an interesting thought exercise to work out if this was possible here in Australia. And I'm of the opinion that it probably isn't possible because Australia's market is so primarily driven by modern mint product, whereas in America, what they call classic coinage, so that's coinage dating, prior to World War One, is still a huge part of the market over there. And the market is very liquid for what most people would consider to be expensive coins, $5,000 coins, $10,000 coins. Dealers over there do make good business out of buying $5,000 coins for $4,500 and making $500 on them, and the market is quite strong. There are a lot of buyers for $5,000 coins in the USA, whereas here in Australia, a $5,000 coin, perhaps there are only 20 or 30 buyers in all of Australia for those sorts of coins, because so many people are focused on collecting mint product. And the other way that this young gentleman makes a lot of his money is via coin shows. And the coin show market in the USA is a lot more vibrant than it is here in Australia, with most major cities having several coin shows a year. And putting yourself in a place like Virginia, where it's not too far to go to many major cities and to travel to other states, you could easily attend a good sized coin show every weekend and do good business at coin shows every weekend. I don't think what this young man is doing is possible here in Australia. I think that you would need to either have a shop front like we have to get access to being able to buy from the public, or be willing to travel a lot. There just simply aren't enough coin shows where the general public is bringing in material to sell here in Australia to not be able to have a shop front. So, but kudos to this young fella for doing what he's doing. It's quite a remarkable thing that he's going to university and running a business that's generating almost $1 million in revenue. Now, what else have we got in the news this week? Alright, so I think what we're going to do now is jump into some questions. What have I done here? Sorry, I'm just I've done something wrong here, so you'll just have to excuse me while I get my my act together here. So we had a couple of questions this week via YouTube and via Facebook this morning. Now, one of the questions that we got this morning was regarding the 2015 missing leg dollar coin variety and how this could have happened. So I ducked into Catherine's dollar folders this morning and looked through her stock of 2015 dollar coins, and without too much effort I found a few examples of this supposed missing leg variety, and then some examples that did not have the missing leg. So what you can see there at the top is a normal $20-15 coin, and at the bottom is one of these 2015 missing leg kangaroos, and I've circled on both of them the area that we're talking about. So we're talking about the back right leg of the third kangaroo from the top. On the missing leg $2015 coin, that leg is largely missing from the reverse of the coin. Hopefully that's highlighted there quite clearly in those images that I've shared with you. And why has this happened? And there are a number of ways that this could happen. Firstly is that it could just be a weak strike. So a weak strike is where low striking pressure has been used to strike the coins, and that results in not all of the design being struck up. Now, in the case of this particular thing, I don't think that's what's happened. Now, the reason for that is that the strike on the obverse of this particular coin is full. So that means that the queen's head is fully struck up, and generally for a low pressure strike you would see strike weakness on both sides of the coin. So I don't believe it's strike weakness that's the problem. The next way that this could happen is that you could actually have what's called die fill on the coin, and die fill is where the die actually fills up with some sort of foreign material, whether that be grease or oil or something like that. Now, I again do not believe that that is the issue here, simply because the strike weakness across pretty much the whole reverse of the missing leg coin is fairly uniform, and generally filled dies exhibit strong strike weakness in some areas and less strike weakness in others, and that's because they're not filled completely with oil or grease. Now, the third possibility for this coin being the way it is that when the production die was created, it was created not optimally. And the way a production die is created is that a master die, a hardened steel master die, is pressed into a pre-hardened production die blank, and you get basically a reversed impression of the design of the coin on that production die blank, and then that production die blank gets hardened and is used to strike coins. Now, if you could imagine that perhaps the pressure used to form that reverse die was a bit lower than it should have been, then you wouldn't get fully formed features, and you'd end up with basically a fairly soft design across the entire surface of the coin, and that's exactly what you're seeing here. So if you look at the image at the bottom left there, the kangaroo's face on the right hand side is obviously very soft. There's double lines missing around the kangaroo's ears. If you look at the top right image, you can see some double lines at the top on the right hand kangaroo ear, and those are missing on the missing leg coin, and generally it has an overall softer appearance than the normal $2015 coin. So my theory is that when the production die was created for this particular missing leg $2015 coin, it was produced at perhaps a lower pressure than it should have been, and you ended up with a softer design being on those production dies, and then you end up with a softer design on the actual coins that were made, and that's why the leg is missing. And again, that is supported by the fact that on the head side of the coin, the queen's design is fully struck up. So I don't know if that theory is correct, but I'm going to run with it. I think that's what has happened with these. It is well worth looking out for these. They are quite interesting. I don't think they add a whole lot of value. They aren't hard to find. Catherine had, I don't know, about 10 or 15 2015 dollar coins in her folder here, and 4 of the 10 or 15 coins were these missing leg coins. So you know, there's quite a few of them around, and I do remember having dinner one night in a pub with Catherine and Peter Andrews, who's watching now, and the pub gave us change that was fresh from a broken dollar roll, and they were all these missing leg dollar coins. So I don't think they're a scarce thing. I don't think they add a whole lot of value to it. So the next question we had was from someone who asked about a typeset album that's on our website, and we have a typeset album on our website that has about 29 or 30 coins in it, and there's what that album looks like there. That's the threepence and sixpence page, and he he or she, I'm not sure if it's a he or a she asked if there was a reason why all of the coins shown were the last year of the type. So for example, the George V threepence is a 1936, the George V sixpence is a 1936, the George VI threepence, George VI sixpence is a 1952. Basically, no, there's no particular reason why. That's the way it came into the shop. The good thing about typeset albums is that you can fill them the way that you like, subject to the spaces that are available in them. If you're wondering what a typeset is a collection of coins of each particular type. So a simple way of describing that is a Australian commemorative florin typeset would have a Royal Visit florin, a 1951 Federation florin, a 1927 Parliament florin, and a 1934-35 centenary florin in it. A silver typeset, for example, of florins, you might include Edward the 7th florin, a George V florin, George VI and QE2 florin. Then you could perhaps include the commemoratives, and then you could also perhaps include the different legend types. So for example, from 1940, from the George VI coins until 1948 had Ind Imp on the obverse, which means Emperor of India, and after 1948 that was removed because India was granted its independence. So those coins from 1949 to 1952 are a slightly different design to the ones prior to it. And the good thing about typesets is that you get to decide how to fill them. And what I've done here is just given that person a few tips. What coins to put in a typeset? Well, it's up to you. In this particular case of this album here, whoever filled it up has chosen to put the last year of issue of every type. You could put the first year of issue. You could put in match grades. You might choose to have uncirculated coins of each particular type, in which case you might go for the cheapest year for match grades. So for example, if you were looking for a uncirculated 1910 Edward the 7th florin, then you have to pick 1910. That was the only year that it was made. If you were looking for an uncirculated George V florin, you might look for a 1931 because they are quite affordable in uncirculated grades. If you're looking for a George VI florin and you didn't care about mint marks, you might look for a 1944S because they are quite available in uncirculated grades. And if you're looking for a QE2 florin, you might choose 1962 because they are very common in uncirculated grades, and that will be the cheapest way of putting together a set of those coins. Some albums actually include a spot for the obverse of the coin. So for example, if you were going to do a florin typeset and your album had obverses of coins and you wanted uncirculated, then you would be stuck finding uncirculated Edward the 7th florins, which is going to be incredibly difficult and quite expensive. Then you've got to decide if the typeset is accurate. For example, in 1951, sixpences and threepences and halfpennies, for that example, they were all struck in the UK as well as here in Australia. So despite at a quick glance they might appear to be identical coins, they're not, because there is a PL mint mark on the reverse of them, and that album that I showed you that's up on our website does not distinguish between the PL minted coins and the Melbourne minted coins. So if you are using an album, is it accurate, or are you going to choose to use your own album and create your own typeset? So that was the question that came out through Facebook this morning. So thank you to the person that asked that particular question. Let me just check if there was anything else I've missed out on here. Oh yes, right. Numismaticnews.net had a survey for their customers, their readers this week, for them to share a story, and I probably encourage any of you out there that are watching to think about this question, and if you felt like sharing your response to me, I'd be happy to share it. And that question was, if you had to tell one story from your collection to get someone hooked on numismatics, what would it be? And it's an interesting question to ponder. I had a couple of answers, but when I was thinking about it this morning, I came up with one particular answer. And this was back in the days before the Purple Penny had its own physical presence. We were just an online business, and similar to that young gentleman from the University of Virginia, Catherine and I would travel all over the place looking for inventory to buy, and 99% of the inventory that we bought was off of other dealers. So we were looking for bargains or undergraded coins or errors, or things like that that we could make a small profit out of. And back in perhaps about 2012 or 2013, we attended the ANDA show in Sydney. I believe it's in Sydney. It was in Sydney Town Hall, downstairs in Sydney Town Hall. And we were there on a Saturday, and we attended the show, and we did our usual thing, which is to sort of go around the tables fairly quickly and decide where we're going to sit first. And I do remember that we decided that about halfway through the day we'd sit at Klaus Ford's table, and Klaus Ford has passed away several years ago now, so you may or may not know who Klaus Ford was, but Klaus was a dealer from Melbourne, very much of the old school. He would send out mailing lists, and he'd send you coins on approval, and everything would be graded in his own holders, and he was a unique individual, Klaus. But this particular day we sat down, and he'd obviously just bought a small hoard of 5-cent blanks off of someone because he had 5 or 10 of them, and they were a little bit undervalued. Catherine and I thought maybe we could make $5 out of them or $10 out of each one, so we bought the whole lot. And Catherine and I had always been careful when we buy blanks to check whether a coin had been pre-struck or not, and that's because we had a couple of blanks in our own collection for years that we looked at probably not long before we attended this show, and we realised that both of them had actually been struck, just ever so slightly had been struck. And does that make them worth more? Well, maybe it makes a coin worth, instead of $50, it might make it worth $75 or something like that. It's not a huge difference. So when we bought these $5 blanks, we did notice that this one had some sort of impression on it, and maybe it was a bag mark, maybe it was struck. We weren't really sure. We didn't really have time to spend a whole lot of time looking at it at the show. We just bought it anyway on the off chance that it was going to be something interesting. Maybe it was a 5-cent piece that was really weakly struck. And I do remember we got back to Adelaide the next week, and we're going through our purchases, and we just put this to one side as a 5-cent that was struck with a very low pressure. And I can remember we sat down looking at it, and we just could not tally up the marks on the coin with anything on a 5-cent piece. It just, we couldn't make heads or tails of it. So we thought perhaps it was just bag marks or something like that. So we stuck it under a microscope, and it was clear that whatever was there wasn't a bag mark. It was actually something that had been struck on it. So at that point we decided it was probably a New Zealand 5-cent piece that had been struck on it, because the Royal Australian Mint did strike New Zealand 5-cent pieces. And so we looked up that, and sure enough, there was nothing on the New Zealand 5-cent piece either that tallied up with what we saw here. So I can remember sitting there for a couple of hours just nutting over this. And I don't know if you've ever seen cartoons where the light bulb pops up over someone's head when they have a good idea, but I can still remember to this day that light bulb did pop up over my head, and I got goosebumps all down my back when it suddenly occurred to me what it was that I was looking at. And what I was looking at, sorry about this, what I was looking at was I was looking at a $2 coin. Now at this point, this was the only $2 coin that was known that was struck on a 5-cent blank. And you can see there I've actually rotated the error around in the PCGS holder a little bit, and put it next to an image that I got off the Royal Australian Mint website and circled the appropriate areas. So up the top there you can see that little V-shaped indentation, and that corresponds with the portrait of the Queen just behind her ear and the nape of her neck there. And then at the bottom you can see that vertical line, and that corresponds with the the beard of the Indigenous gentleman on the reverse of the $2 coin. So, you know, what this was a $2 coin that had been struck on a 5-cent piece. So there was some sort of blank contamination at the Royal Australian Mint, and somehow this got into $2 production, got struck, ended up in a bag of $2 coins, and then, you know, at some point has just been put to one side because it obviously wasn't a $2 coin. And as I said at the time, it was the only known $2 coin struck on a 5-cent piece. You know, as far as error coins go, it's a pretty remarkable thing, but to look at, it's not very exciting. But I do remember to this day the thrill that I got up and down my spine when I realised what this was, and, you know, the lengths that Catherine and I had gone to find this coin. I mean, finding this coin dated back to perhaps late 2008 and 2009, when we realised that our supposed blanks were not blanks but really low pressure strikes, and from that point forward we'd always been careful to look at every blank to make sure it wasn't ever so slightly struck. And, you know, perhaps 5 or 6 years later that paid off at that coin show in Sydney for us. And you know, back in the day where we were just trading online and not turning over a lot of money in the purple penny, this was a big win for us. And you know, it really has cemented error collecting of something that interests us. Even though we don't really collect errors anymore, they still really interest us. We really enjoy looking at them, finding them, and trying to explain how they happen. So that's the story that I'd tell someone if you were going to get into coin collecting, the fact that something like this can be found in a coin show. You know, and perhaps it's a once in a lifetime find, but it was an amazing find, and one that I do think about quite often. Right, that's it for this week. Thank you everyone for joining in, and thank you to the 2 people who asked questions that I got to answer today, and thank you for numismaticnews.net for asking that question about what story you would tell someone to get them interested in coin collecting. If anyone out there has a story they'd like to share, then send me a message with your story and I'll be happy to share that next week. If there are any questions you'd like me to answer next week, please do contact me. Don't forget, we've got this new camera set up over here, which I was going to use today, but we've run out of time. I'm happy to show close-ups of coins and things like that. Much more easy now than what it was before. And that's it for today. So happy collecting, everyone. Stay safe, and we'll see you same time next week. Bye for now.